Okay. We'll go ahead and get started with the June 24th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. The first item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from May 27, 2025 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the minutes from June 3rd, 2025 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and the minutes of June 10th, 2025 Planning Committee meeting. The financial statements, the list of payments for May 2025, the summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $50,000, and the next meeting date of July 22nd, 2025. Are there any items you would like to call out from there, Ted, or anything that needs in particular additional context?
No, nothing unless someone has a question.
Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion or any call out from that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to our next agenda item is our public comment period. We ask any of the public who are here with us today to please come to the podium and give their name, address, and topic or purpose for attending our meeting. And just as a reminder, this is a public comment period and not a opportunity for dialogue and discussions. And so we will do our best to listen to concerns and go from there. Do we have any public with us today, either here in the room or online, that wish to speak? Okay. Not hearing or seeing any, or sorry, did I miss anybody over here? No. Not hearing or seeing any, we'll move into our action items for the agenda. The first, let me just scroll down a bit here. Sorry, I apologize. But the first action item is to receive and file the 2024 audit reports.
Andrea, RSM US LLP presented the audit of our financial statements through the year ending December 31, 2024 to the Finance and Audit Committee. There's a little bit of an overview here in the memo of what was included in their review, but most importantly, they issued an unmodified or clean opinion on our financial statements across the board, including the audits of Moines Waterworks as a collection agent for wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste for the city of Des Moines. And we would, as staff, recommend that the board receive and file those audit reports.
I am looking for a motion to receive and file the 2024 financial audit reports and distribute reports to the appropriate agencies.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You know, I apologize. I'm gonna back up a moment here and just point out that we have a new board member here with us tonight. Emily Kessinger, this is her first board meeting, so welcome. As you can see, we just kind of jump into it and start the business. No celebratory discussion there. So our next subject, our next agenda item is the public hearing for the Icon Water Trails project easement at the Des Moines Waterworks Lowhead Dam. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing regarding the granting of an easement to Polk County, Iowa for the use and benefit of the Polk County Conservation Board across Waterworks real estate. Do we have anyone wishing to speak regarding this topic? Then I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion to authorize the board chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the document granting an easement to Polk County, Iowa for the use and benefit of the Polk County Conservation Board at the Central Iowa Waterworks Lowhead Dam once all terms and conditions are suitably met by Des Moines Waterworks staff and legal counsel.
Before we go there, Ted, have there been any oral or written comments received before the meeting?
We have not received any comments.
So moved. And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On to item 3C, which is the 2024 Northeast Booster Station. So I will begin by opening the public hearing for comments from the public regarding the form of contract, plans, and specifications and estimated cost.
We have not received any comments on this one either.
Okay. Do we have anyone here that wishes to speak? Right, then I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion for adoption of form, contract, plans, and specification and estimated cost.
So moved. Second.
And we do that analysis of bids prior to vote.
Don't take a vote on
Okay.
this.
Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we'll have that analysis.
Andrew, this was in April of 2025. The board authorized staff to solicit bids for this booster station. The Northeast Booster Station, you will recall, was a booster station that we originally intended to construct jointly with Bond. And we kind of started down that path. And then Bond made the decision to build their own treatment plant and not participate in the booster station. So then we have the booster station revised somewhat, basically just removing some of the facilities that would have served Bond. Then we took it out for bid here recently. We did get 5 bids as shown here in the memo, and we got pretty good bids, pretty consistent there. A little bit over the engineer's estimate, about 11% over the estimate, but grouped pretty well. So we think we have good bids. And it's going to be our recommendation that we award the contract. Lindsay, is there anything you want to share about the bidding?
Just to follow up just on the reason it's over the estimate was electrical material costs was more than what we had estimated. And those have been kind of volatile with lead times and then also pricing. So kind of confirm that, but based on what they found for electrical costs, they're right in our estimate. So it would be comfortable with awarding.
Do you have any concerns around implementing things change for they? Is it any sort of change orders or anything that they were playing with? Or whatever?
I think we have concern, yes. I'm not sure we have enough concern to delay the project or put it off, but that whole thing is constantly evolving. And we just have to, move through the project, but that can certainly happen. But hopefully not.
Remind me, this is in April, we solicited bids. Was that solicitation of bids delayed at all with the conversation back and forth with Bond?
It certainly was, yeah. I don't know off the top of my head how much, but we're trying to get Bond to sign an agreement, but we began to discuss with them, and they were having conversations about whether they were going to participate in this, build their own plant. So that took a number of months before they ultimately said, no, we're not going to participate. So I'm sure it did delay, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think we originally came to the board for approval to solicit bids in October. And that was basically with the thought that the 2080 would be signed. And so we delayed it once. And then we just took it off until we came back in April, so probably 6 months.
I ask, I know that you mentioned that the additional cost from our estimates because of electrical, and I'm just wondering, had we actually been able to move forward as we anticipated? Would we have saved ourselves $300,000, or did that delay kind of going back and forth end up costing us more in where we are now?
Well, we revised the design also though, so we took out some piping and equipment that was, our original estimate was 3.5 million. But then we took out the pump and some piping, that third pump for Bondurant. So that revised our estimate to 3. It's kind of hard to say though, if we would have saved, if thinking about it, I think the pricing would have been probably higher than what we estimated it still, regardless.
Any other questions? Then I believe I need a motion to award the 2024 Northeast Booster Station contract to WRH Inc. in the amount of $3,319,000 and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Item 3D is the acceptance of the 2023 FWTP pump station HVAC upgrades.
Andrea, in December of 2023, the board awarded a contract to Corn Estates, metal fabricators. The amount just over $1 million for pump station HVAC upgrades at the fluid drive pumping station building. We did quite a bit of work related to upgrading the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems there, which were outdated and just had reached the end of their useful life. It's time to replace them. All the work associated with that project is complete. There were a few small change orders totaling about $60,000 over a series of 8 change orders to deal with some structural unknowns that we ran into. We started opening up the building and some control systems modifications, but ultimately they finished the project. This is a Central Iowa Waterworks joint capital project now because that facility has been transferred. Central Iowa Waterworks, the technical committee has been kept up to date on the project and movement through the process. And we would recommend that the board accept the contract.
I need a motion to accept the 2023 Floor Water Treatment Plant Pump Station HVAC Upgrades Project completed by Corn Estates Metal Fabricators, Inc. in the amount of $1,106,988.60. So,
second.
any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, moving on to item 3E is the acceptance of the 2024 filter media replacement, the floor drive water treatment plant.
This is another 2023 project, Andrea, that was awarded to HydroClean in the amount of $990,000. We're going to replace filter media in 4 of the existing filters, 4 of the 16 existing filters down at the Fluid Drive filter building. Removed all of the sand and gravel filter media and restore or improve that filter performance for those filters that hadn't been upgraded for some time. That project is also complete. There were 2 change orders totaling $90,000. A couple of big change orders, but once we got the filters opened up and down inside them, we could tell that 2 of the 4 had under drains that had collected a lot of sand that had moved through the filters and down into the under drains. Possible to tell that until we got into them, but important to get that cleaned out. So we did add a couple of pieces of work there to get those under drains cleaned out so the filters could perform as effectively as possible. Again, this is a Central Iowa Waterworks joint capital project because that facility is transferred in ownership. Technical committee has been briefed and we're up to date. And we would recommend that the board accept the contract.
Can I have a motion to accept the 2024 filter media replacement floor drive water treatment plant project completed by HydroClean LLC in the amount of $1,088,000 $80,595.
So. Second.
Any discussion? I just have a question, I suppose, why did this take over a year and a half to replace filters?
Yeah, good question. You know, most importantly, we have very small windows of time when we can do those. We can't do them like. We wouldn't be able to do it now because we're into higher demand and we need all the filters. So very short windows of time over the winter. It was pretty challenging for them to get two in during each season. We didn't want to break that contract up. And so it takes time for them to get in and get out.
Okay.
And they had to use those small ones. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd add to that.
Yeah, I would say, I think that the time frame was about maybe 10 weeks to do one filter, so to give you some perspective and then to avoid the high peak season. So, thank you.
What's the lifespan of these filter medias out here currently?
You know, I would say the lifespan on the filter media is probably 25 to 30 years. And I would say they were due.
It was in the 80s when this was replaced. Probably time.
I wouldn't fly over your house.
Probably maybe around Library, we'll find.
And I can appreciate, you know, while those are out, doing the additional work to make sure that we're not just moving a problem down the line, but cleaning up the sand and the additional things that needed to be done to make sure that they were at their peak performance when they were back in use. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. If there are no additional comments or questions, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 3F is to request authorization to solicit bids for the 2024 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 2 project and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the July 2025 board meeting.
Andrea, this is yet another project in our kind of ongoing effort to replace aging water mains across the system. You can see there the list of streets that we're going to do work on in this project. There's also a map that kind of shows where the streets are in the city. Plans and specifications for this work are nearing completion. The engineer's estimate has been put together, $2.383 million, and staff would recommend that board authorize solicitation of bids for the project.
I need a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for the 2024 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 2 project and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the July 2025 board meeting and to direct staff to publish notice as provided by law.
Second.
Any discussion on this project? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3G is to request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute purchase agreement for additional hydrogeological services for the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant 10 MGD expansion.
Andrea, the board is well aware that we have a professional services agreement with HDR Engineering and Black and Beach to do the design for the 10 MGD expansion at Saylorville. And the board is also well aware that we've been having some challenges finding adequate raw water resources up in the vicinity of that plant. We've done quite a bit of investigation with the radio collector wells initially. Probably not adequate siting for the radial collector wells we need, so we're looking at potentially using some vertical wells along the river instead. But to facilitate that investigation of the raw water supply system for that 10 MGD expansion, HDR and Black and Beach have requested some additional hydrogeological testing be done up in that area. In response to that request, staff issued a request for proposals for additional services. And you can see there the general scope of what we're asking for. Borings in 10 different locations, pump tests at 7 sites. We had responses from 2 different firms. And staff is recommending that the board authorize execution of the purchase agreement with product companies in amount of $173,248 to conduct that additional hydrogeologic testing.
Would someone like to make the motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a purchase agreement with the trout companies in the amount of $172,248 for additional hydrogeological services related to the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant 10 MGD expansion?
So moved. Check.
Thank you. I have a question. So what we're looking for them to do with doing these hydrogeological services, is that similar to what we're currently doing, looking for the various pockets on our other ASR project?
This would be unrelated to the ASR project, but up in the vicinity of the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant, we are trying to find the best location to put either radial collector wells, which I think we've kind of moved past the notion that there will be appropriate locations for as many radial collector wells as we hope to install. Now we're looking for appropriate locations for vertical wells. Lindsay, what would you add to that?
Yeah, so when we did the original geologic, we were testing near the river for the radial collector wells, just like Ted said. And now, since we're gonna need vertical wells, we need to check the geology and do testing to make sure they're good sites for the vertical wells. So that's what we're planning to do on this.
On that ASR well, we had a couple of lost circulation zones. That ASR well is being constructed up there by Polk County Pumping Station. So we had some issues with that. I think we've kind of gotten through that.
Okay.
At this
Yeah,
point.
they're actually done drilling on the ASR and they're gonna be putting in casing
Okay,
now, so they kind of got through, they drilled to the total depth here just yesterday.
so, but is there a chance that we are going to have, similar challenges here, or is it a completely different thing?
It's a completely different thing. The ASR wells are very deep, 2,500 feet deep, and we ran into broken bedrock formations that cause that lost circulation. These wells are less than 100 feet deep, so we won't get into the bedrock, and we won't have that kind of problem with this well, to be sure.
Okay, thank you.
So with just so I'm understanding, so are radial at least preferred just based on cost, they're cheaper and then if you can't make it work, you go to vertical, that
Yeah,
decision matrix there.
radial collector wells, an individual radial collector well, including the couple that we have up at Saylorville now, can produce 10, 12 million gallons per day each. We have a couple of very productive radial collector wells, and we had a couple of very good sites put those in. Our hope was that we would find other very good sites, either further south or across the river. But as we did the analysis, unfortunately, we just didn't find as good sites. So I think the plan.
Way in the back.
I think the plan is now we're looking at maybe 2 radial collector wells instead of 4 or 5. And then those other radial collector wells that we're not gonna put in, we're gonna replace with maybe 20 or 30 vertical wells. So, they're much less expensive, but there's a lot of them and there's a lot of piping and motor and everyone. So there's some economies of scale with the radial collectors if you can find a spot to put one that justifies the expense and you get enough water out of it. But what we've found, sort of surprisingly, is that there just aren't enough good pockets up there to put 6 radial collectors.
And I think if I recall back to your previous meeting, you kind of said like, well, after we did the first 2 and they were very productive, 2 or however many installed. And then the future data started to look less good, and like, well, maybe we just got really lucky on it, and that just kind of what ended up happening.
Yeah, I think we're just really effective the first time at finding the best spots.
Yeah.
We hadn't done an exhaustive evaluation of the whole area the first time. We found a couple of very good spots, assumed that there would be similar very good spots. But, you know, that's why you do the analysis and all the geotechnical work that we've done to determine that there really aren't a couple of good spots, but there aren't 6. So, we're gonna pivot a little bit and look for spots where we can get, you know, 500,000 gallons per day out of, you know, 20 different wells, make up that.
Any other questions or comments? There is a motion on the table. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We're on to item 3H, which is the termination of a 28E agreement with West Des Moines Waterworks regarding withdrawal of source water from the Raccoon River.
Andrea, back in 2021, the board authorized us to enter into a 28E agreement with West Des Moines Waterworks that basically said that they were going to agree to limit their withdrawal of water from the Raccoon River Basin at a proposed west plant during certain conditions when the river levels were low. And we wanted to be certain that we would continue to receive the flows that we needed in the river for our McMullen plant and for our Fluid Drive. So basically, the agreement was that they were going to restrict their usage for the west plant to ensure that we always had enough water here for Moines Waterworks purposes. With the asset transfer process that happened when Central Iowa Waterworks went live, that permit has actually been transferred to Central Iowa Waterworks, as have all of our permits. Our water use permits been transferred. So now all of the permits are Central Iowa Waterworks permits, and we are coordinating amongst all of the members of Central Iowa Waterworks at all of our plants to ensure that we get the most possible water for the collective group. That being the case, that agreement actually limits how much water can be used upstream at the new west plant that we are now going to build jointly. And so that can actually hamper Central Iowa Waterworks' ability to be most effective. And so it really doesn't apply anymore. And so we're here today just to ask for permission to terminate that 2080 agreement so that it just isn't there. And then we will be able to work with Central Iowa Waterworks collectively with all the plants once the west plant is built to maximize the available capacity for everyone collectively. It's one of the beauties of Central Iowa. So we're looking for authorization to terminate that.
And so can I have that motion to authorize termination of the 28E agreement between the Board of Waterworks Trustees of the City of Des Moines, Iowa, and West Des Moines Waterworks regarding the withdrawal of source water from the Raccoon River dated April 2021.
So moved. Second.
Any additional questions? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we move on into the information items and jump over item.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Okay, do we want to review or just jump right over? Okay, we're gonna jump right over. I've decided. Information items. First up, we have our board committee reports, which is starting with the Finance and Audit Committee.
So we had the presentation on the audit report from RSM, this one, which we just adopted, but I opted to wait to talk about it. Invigorating as always, as the
Riveting.
riveting. They are people who very much like detail and process checking, and that's great for them. Yeah, it was very helpful to just hear everything as a board. I feel personally very good that we have sound controls and processes. There was, and I always forget the term, what they say, no
material deficiencies.
Yeah, or no opinion, or what did they say?
It's a unmodified.
Unmodified that,
Potato.
yeah. Audit, so, thank you to staff and everything they do that, another year with sound financials for the organization, so appreciative of that. Anything else, Amy, that you would like to call out on that? Or was that
Glad
was
it's
it?
over.
You know, and yes, I'm sure it was plenty of work as it was.
Great, thank you for that. Our planning committee update.
The planning committee met on the 10th of June. There was a correction to the meeting minutes. Thank you, Caitlin. There was a update from property management supervisor Jessica Barnett on grounds department update. Caitlin, if you wouldn't mind just sending out that presentation to the rest of the board. I don't think it was in there. So Jessica had a great presentation of ongoing efforts to beautify the gardens. So Emily and I were able to attend that meeting. Interesting discussion of geese buffer strips to keep the geese away from the water and the fourth year of a prairie grass effort and have some control burns associated with that. So really impressive efforts from the team. And then Kyle gave an update on nitrates, which we'll get deeper into later. Emily, anything you want to add?
I already told Ted I love Jessica's enthusiasm. She seems like she'd be fun to work with.
Yes.
So,
That's it for me.
Great, thank you. We'll jump into board membership reports and start with Central Iowa Waterworks Board, and the highlights are there in your board packet by Diane.
Oh, and I would begin by saying Tammy is here also. You can see from the board highlights that we were having pretty rote things going on and still having some organizational things, and you can see that. And then after this, we had the nitrate issues, which I'm sure Ted will talk about later, and which has been a really interesting time for all of us. You're all receiving the updates on where those levels are, and I hope you're all following the press of CIWW work to get information out there about why the lawn watering ban is necessary at this time, and that we've been successful in bringing that demand under control and being able to provide safe drinking water to the metro area. There's just so many pieces of this that I don't really even know how to get into them. It's been eye-opening. We always knew as we put together Central Iowa Waterworks and everybody was getting along just fine, that we would get our first crisis. It's been our first crisis, and I think that we have learned a lot through this crisis. Or I don't know, event. I guess it's not a crisis because no one's been harmed and our grass is still green. So through this event, we have a lot of good data that we didn't have before, that we'll be able to utilize. And once we get through this event, there will be every effort to take that information, put it together, and see how the next time that this happens, we'll be able to do a much better job. Although, as I said, I think we're managing through this. We're getting information, educating the public. So that's a good thing. And we'll take the bumps in the road, but we're been able to continue to provide that water to the community. And Tammy, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I don't have anything to add other than we are continuing to provide drinking water that meets all safe drinking water standards to over 600,000 people in our community at this time. So that is a priority. The day that we have concerns with public health and safety is the day that I never want to get to. So it's been instrumental that we continue to implement that ban so that we do have the capacity available to keep our communities healthy. So thank you very much for your support in enforcing that ban.
I appreciate the update and the opportunity to have this discussion here. It's interesting to note that these are the May 2025 highlights, so this is prior to probably even prior to the voluntary bans kicking off. But as you can see in the highlights, you're already, I mean, full steam ahead with looking at our capital, looking at the region's capital improvement plan. And doing the work to get us to a place where we have the capacity and creating that expansion out west. So that way we are able to provide clean drinking water to a growing metro area. You know, one of the benefits of coming together as a region was to be able to work through things that come across and impact our resources together, and pulling minds from across the regions and leadership from across the region together to establish and identify solutions. So I think this is a testament to why we created Central Iowa Water Works and how we're moving forward. So thank you for that update. Does anybody else have questions or comments to share with Diane to take back to Central Iowa?
Yeah, I do want to say, and I'm glad you brought up the CIP. Because I think there's been a little bit of confusion. We're adding capacity. We will be adding capacity in the future, and that will be added to meet growth. The capacity that we're adding, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, will take the nitrates out of the water because of the design of those plants. So it's not additions that are made specifically to take out nitrates, but that would be one of the benefit. And then the capacity of the plants that have the older technology will be a smaller amount of the grade. It'll give us more flexibility and more options to deal with nitrates in the future.
That's a good perspective.
Great. There's nothing else there. I'll jump into Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation. It seems like it was much longer than just a month ago that we met. But I will just share that concert season's kicking off and activity in the park is well underway. We had our first concert there and were able to really it was our new executive director's first concert alone, without he's fully transitioned, and the prior consultants are no longer there. So we were able to kind of look at all of the new policies that he's implementing and having him kind of run the show now. And I think it was a successful endeavor, and we're looking forward to the rest of the concert season. There's some upcoming not only concerts, but also cultural events and programmatic events that are being scheduled. And those can all be found on the website. And they're continuing, the Park Foundation is continuing to establish their sustainability from a financial perspective and looking to how they diversify that income. But beyond that, I don't know if there's any major highlights to share at this time, unless Pat is online and would like to add anything.
Oh, I think he's on vacation.
Oh, okay.
Is it true, Andrea, that they sold 13,000 tickets for the upcoming concert? That would be a big one.
They do have, it's the Treaty Oak Revival, and yes, it is going to be a very large concert. I can't confirm that it's been 13,000, but I know that's in the ballpark of what they were anticipating selling.
Positive from what
Yes, definitely. Any other questions? Okay. Jumping over then to Ted, the CEO and General Manager comments.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. I just want to focus my comments today on the nitrate situation and kind of what's been going on with that. I think we're in the 13th day now, I believe, if I counted correctly, of our lawn watering ban. And the lawn watering ban has been effective at accomplishing its primary goal, which was to reduce demand to a point where we could produce enough water that met the drinking water standard to meet our health and safety requirements for our community, to meet our domestic needs. It was pretty amazing. We saw a 30 million gallon per day reduction in demand over 2 to 3 days, which represented about 30% of the demand that we had on the 12th of June, which was the day we implemented the ban. We've had a very high rate of compliance across the metro. Probably not 100%, but the vast majority of our residential and commercial customers have stepped up to the plate and helped us get through this. Unfortunately, nitrate concentrations in both of our river sources and all of our groundwater sources remain high. They're all currently above that 10 milligram per liter standard. Both rivers are well above the standard. The Raccoon was 14.17 today, and the Des Moines was 13.9. And I think it's important to note that we have to remove nitrates when the nitrates are above 10. So if it's 11, we have to remove a little bit of nitrate, but when it's 14, we have to remove 4 times as much nitrate. And so as the number gets higher, it gets kind of exponentially harder to meet the standard, and to have all 3 of all the sources above the standard is not unprecedented, certainly, but it makes it more challenging. I just think it's important to note that. The nitrate removal facility, I think, has been running for over 60 days thus far this year, which is nowhere near record, but it's a big job and it's a lot of work for our production folks who are having to staff that facility 7 days a week. Not necessarily 24 hours a day, but many hours a day and every day of the week. We have stayed in compliance with the standard, and I'm going to say safely within the standard. We did have one day where finished nitrates were above 9, just getting pretty close to that standard of 10, but typically we're in the 7 to 8 range, 8 something on any given day, and that's a positive. We have had some challenges. Some of them were expected, some of them were somewhat unexpected, I'm going to say. I mean, you have a plan like this on the shelf for 30 years, you never have to implement it, and then you do, and it's like, wow, it says that. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to do that then. But we are learning and we're refining. But I want to share some of the challenges that we have had, because I think it's important to understand. One of the first challenges we had was that we went from stage 2 to stage 3 in a very short amount of time, literally like the next day. And ideally, we would have had a couple of weeks between each of the stages. The demand started increasing so quickly that we just got to the limit almost overnight. And frankly, when we implemented stage 2, we didn't see any reduction in demand, and we were within a day or 2 of not being able to meet the standard. So decision making was happening kind of in real time, and we're trying to communicate that to all of our member agencies across Central Iowa Waterworks, all of our total service customers. And communication has been one of our biggest challenges. Consistent, timely, understandable messaging to all the member agencies in Central Iowa Waterworks, to elected officials across the community, to our customers, including our total service customers, to the healthcare industry. Consistent, timely messaging has been a big challenge. Partially because of that, if not entirely because of that, Central Iowa Waterworks did engage Wickstead and Associates to help us get some professional perspective on that messaging, what the messaging should be, and how we should communicate that message. And so we've done a number of things here in the last week or so with 3, what they're referring to as press availabilities, where essentially invite the press to come to a particular place, provide them information, allow them the opportunity to ask questions. Those have been incredibly well attended. We had one out at the Recplex. That was the first one where we did kind of a broad overview of what was going on. We did one at Saylorville Water Treatment Plant on Friday, where we came and showed them the facility, gave them an update, showed them the facility, allowed them to see RO technology at work, answer their questions. And then we had one today in the lab that I think is probably the best attended by the press. I think you'll see a lot of coverage on that across all media tonight. If you watch, and we tried to help them understand a number of things. One, that we are measuring nitrates often and extremely accurately. Talked about home test strips and the challenges that you can have with getting accurate measurements there. And then, of course, we just gave another update on the situation, and specifically like rain and what that's doing to the duration of the event. We're also sending out daily nitrate updates. Tammy is doing a nice job of sending out to all the member agencies, putting it on the CIW website. Public information officers from all the communities across Central Iowa Waterworks, news media, communications folks across the metro, total service customers. Everyone now is getting a daily update, usually with just 2 or 3 bullets, and then the nitrate concentrations in the rivers and at the plants. We've updated and expanded the frequently asked questions document that's available on the website, making sure we're getting that to all of our member agencies and total service customers. We met with Polk County Public Health, had quite a discussion with them about the implications of nitrates at this level. Even though we're meeting the standard, there are some segments of the population, specifically expectant mothers, that they want to communicate to and make sure they're aware of any sort of health and considerations related to high nitrates. And we met with the governor's staff, gave them an update and kind of helped them understand why is this happening, why this year, how long, why is it taking so long for the members to come down. The governor's staff has actually reached out to us to coordinate a tour with the governor. She's planning to come and tour the facility and herself, which we welcome and kind of looking forward to. And then we're trying to coordinate a virtual update for local area legislators, just to help them understand all of those same questions. Why this year, why so long? So communication is kind of our one challenge, and some of the things that we're trying to do with some of those other to resolve some of the challenges. Number 2, I would say this is one of those things that it's in the plan and you implement it, and then you hear feedback on the challenges that it poses. Splash pads. We look at splash pads as a discretionary use, something that uses a lot of water, something we can turn off and it doesn't do that big of an effect. But we heard a lot that splash pads are a way that residents across the community stay cool, especially on extremely hot days. They're typically free and open to the public unless they're associated specific swimming pool. They're critically important. And so we were able to the plan does call for turning them off, but we were able to pivot pretty quickly, do the analysis, how much water did they use, can we fit that into the available capacity, and reopen them half-time before the heat that we had this weekend. That was pretty well received, and we're continuing to try to understand, when will we get to the point where we can safely open them all. We don't want something like that to be the thing that causes us to violate the standard, but we have capacity available. The other thing that I would say that we're learning is related to sod and new sod and laying sod. We did, but the plan does allow for sod that has been laid this year to be watered. So while that frustrates some neighbors who see a lot of water going on sod across the street and they can't water their lawn that's been planted for 3 years, it's just we don't want it to die. But the other thing that we've learned through communication with folks who've been impacted is that not allowing sod to go down is a hardship for that group of people, specifically the sod farmers and the folks who lay that sod. And so we're working with them, trying to understand, okay, how much water is that gonna take? What are we talking about? Is there a possible way that we can fit that into the available production too? Because again, it creates questions when we allow something like that. You know, you're gonna lay new sod and there's a watering ban. But there are reasons for that. You know, there are reasons to consider it. It's impactful to those businesses. You know, we didn't close the car washes as an example, and you know, that's a discretionary use. We didn't close them because we didn't want to impact business. Well, now we're hearing we are impacting those businesses. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, what can we do? How much water does it take? We haven't been able to get to that number just yet. On the splash pads, we have meters on every one. We can just add them up and we know. And it's a little more challenging to figure this out, but those are kind of three areas of challenge that I wanted to make you aware of. We're probably a ways from this being over. We had a meeting immediately before the board meeting specifically to talk about, you know, where is the exit sign? What is that going to look like? And what is the thing that we can point to and say this is over? The bottom line is we have to be able to produce enough safe, clean drinking water to add 30 to 40 million gallons of lawn water on top of what we're producing today. That's the number. We're producing, you know, 55, 57 million, and we need to be able to add 30 or 40 on top of it. That's a big number. And we're doing the analysis and the calculations to help us figure that out. But we're going to phase it in. We're going to try to do the things that make the most sense to those who are being most impacted first. And we're going to get through this. But that was kind of long in terms of my normal update, but I thought it was important.
I'll add another that I challenge that I think is a challenge is this. We have a new structure in place. Central Iowa Water Works is in charge of the production of water. That's the place where decisions are made. I'm sure you've all been contacted or talked to by people. And people need to understand that under the new regional approach, it's not Des Moines Water Works making those decisions anymore. These decisions are being made on a regional basis. And I would encourage you, I'm your representative to Central Iowa Water Works. Sue Hubbard is also your representative. If you have issues, if you have concerns, please reach out to me, because I sit on that board and I sit on the executive committee and I need to hear about those things. So when Ted talks and says we, I mean, if people hear, is he talking as the CEO of Des Moines Water Works, or who is he talking about? Is he talking as system operator or the CIWW? Is he speaking for CIWW? So I think we have to take this opportunity, and I think Tammy's done a good job in clarifying for the public. We set up this new regional organization. The production of this clean, safe water takes place at Central Iowa Water Works. We have system operators. They are the technical expertise to get that done. It's Des Moines Water Works, it's West Des Moines Water Works, it's
Polk City Grimes.
Polk City and Grimes. But the decisions about how we do that, the decisions on calling for the water shortage plan to be implemented are made at that level. And I think that and it's completely understandable that has been confusing at times for people.
And I think that's a really good point, that we have been the known producer and distributor of water in the metro, or the largest one at least, for so many years, that there is this default to assume that decisions are being made here. But we are part of a larger discussion and a larger entity that's making those decisions. And absolutely, that needs to be known.
I think the other challenge, and I think we've all seen it, is with social media being out there, how quickly rumors can take off about things. And I encourage you, if you hear rumors that are building, please let me know. And I'll get it to Tammy and see if she's hearing it If they're hearing it other places, I'll check with the other board members, but those things can go like wildfire.
I have do we at this juncture, provide any water as a wholesale or otherwise customer to Altoona?
We have a connection to Altoona. They had 1 million gallons of purchase capacity in the old system. They have not been taking water this year. And I think that the reason is that if they started taking water from us, they would be expected to follow our water shortage plan. And they would prefer not to follow it. But I think they too are starting to see some strain from demand.
And that ultimately was my question now, as they are starting to see strain in implementing voluntary bans in Altoona. We are not obligated with a purchase agreement to provide them additional capacity as they are, I mean, not that we really could, because then they would have to turn that voluntary ban into a mandatory ban, but.
Yeah, and I would say we have an agreement with them that says that they can take up to 1 million gallons per day, but if they start taking water, they have to comply with our water shortage plan. That's all part of the agreement. Not aware that they've taken water yet. So they're in a position where they start to take water from us, they're gonna have to prohibit lawn watering and they won't need the water from us. So
Right.
they're in an interesting place right now, but they're trying to manage that without a ban.
Any other questions for Ted or comments?
Question, a lot of the questions I'm getting personally are around the EPA standard. Where does this come from? Safe to say there's not a ton of trust in the federal government. And I don't feel well equipped to give a good answer around why the standard is what the standard is. Have we put out any communication along those lines that you can equip us with around what this standard, where the standard comes from and why it is the best standard?
Sure. So, this is Chair and Board. We do have some FAQs out about why, we are trying to stay under the, EPA standard for the Safe Drinking Water Act, but I would defer to Ted as a system operator on, the answer to that question.
I can share with you that the standard is 10 because research that was done many years ago, that standard's been in place since the mid-1970s. Research was done many years ago indicated that that was the level that was necessary to prevent a condition called blue baby syndrome. And it's complicated, but the nitrate can interfere with an infant's ability to carry oxygen in its blood. So that standard was set many years ago. That's the drinking water standard, or the MCL. EPA also sets MCL goals, which are the level at which they believe there's no known health impact. And so oftentimes the MCL and the MCL goal are different. You know, the MCL is higher and the goal would be lower. Interestingly enough, the MCL goal for nitrate is also 10. So at that time, when the standard was set, that was a level at which they believe there was no known health issue. I will say that there's emerging research related to nitrates that questions whether that's the best. But it is still the standard. And there's emerging research on a lot of things. So in our role, we are bound by the standards, and all of our facilities are constructed and designed and constructed and operated to meet the standard as it exists. And so for us today, that is the best standard. That's the standard. It's the only standard. It's the best standard. But that's not to say that there isn't room for discussion about whether in the future there should be a different standard. I can tell you that right now there isn't discussion about changing the standard. There has been in the past, but the decision was made not to change it. And some of that ebbs and flows with the administrations. they're in office in Washington. And I think it's safe to say that we're in a probably less regulatory environment right now. And so I don't see that changing anytime soon, but standard is 10 and that's the best standard we have.
You mentioned something about Polk County Public Health expressing some concerns about expectant mothers. Can you expand on that?
You know, they understand that the standard is 10 and we're meeting the standard. I don't want to speak for them, but I think that they would want expectant mothers to visit with their healthcare providers about whether that standard is appropriate for unexpected mothers. They're planning on sharing some information here in the coming week, but I don't want to speak for them other than I think that they would want expectant mothers to visit with their healthcare providers.
Thank you.
Would it help if you got some of that in writing?
Would.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I don't know, do you have any of that or?
Absolutely, we can update our FAQs with more information. Yes.
Move on to the.
Sure.
Okay. I'll just point out that our safety update and our utility outreach update are in the board packet for the board's consideration. There's some analysis in there about injuries over time, in a couple of our departments and some of the types of injuries that we've seen, some of what we're trying to do about that. And then our outreach continues. We have multiple outreach events every month. You can get some sense of where we've been and what we've done in terms of trying to share the One Waterworks message in the outreach update. And unless there are more questions from me.
Are there more questions for Ted at this time?
I just have a comment. I don't know if it's appropriate. This is my first board meeting, but I've been really impressed with the level of communication from your parties and groups, CIWW and Moines Waterworks and the communications team. Because this feels unprecedented in my lifetime. And you guys have done a really great job going with it and managing.
We're gonna do an even better job, aren't we?
I agree. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We are already planning on making policy decisions, planning for the future, so that next time we nail it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and staff too, I know are working, as you mentioned, longer hours, and that takes a toll, so I'm sure you know, you're hopefully reminding them to take breaks and all those things too, because it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot, and it's kind of a stressful situation because, you know, we don't want anything to go wrong. We don't want to violate that standard.
Right.
But all the staff at Waterworks takes great pride in doing a good job. I do want to mention too that we had a press event at the lab today, and Lisa Moran, who's our chemist, was recruited to be the spokesperson for the Moines Waterworks. And I've never had that many cameras in front of me in my whole career. It's a very popular press event, and she did such an outstanding job. I told her so. I'm not sure how more to congratulate her and thank her, but people are stepping up, you know, all across the organization to do what they need to do to get through this, and not just in our organization, but you know, Tammy's done a phenomenal job, and Kyle done a phenomenal job, and Melissa, and Laura, and everybody just done a phenomenal job. It's just above and beyond. We have a meeting on 7:30 tonight. As an example, just couldn't fit it in to the day, and so many people are doing such a great job to get through this. But next time we will do.
You know, along those lines, as I was driving in here, I was considering the various things that that the utility has been through in my tenure here, and providing clean drinking water is an essential service. And I've seen Des Moines Waterworks, and now Central Iowa Waterworks step up so many times, whether it was still showing up, making sure the job got done during COVID, showing up and trying to figure out how to ensure that every household can still have safe, clean drinking water, despite nitrate levels. And also just the tremendous services we provide in helping to assist with our water bills and stuff to make sure that everybody can have access to clean, safe drinking water. And I don't think that can be said enough, that our number one priority here at Des Moines Waterworks as utility board members and as utility staff is to make sure that when somebody turns on their tap, they're able to drink clean, safe drinking water. And you all have done a tremendous job to making sure that is the case, regardless of the challenge placed before you. Thank you all for your work. Anything else? We, as Ted mentioned, there is the safety update, the community outreach update, in the contract status and professional services agreement in the board packet. Through all of this, I appreciate the attention still being placed on the safety of staff and making sure that we are taking our staff in. Sorry, there's so many things that this that this utility has kind of been juggling this week. And again, tremendous job, but to finish that thought, I appreciate that we're still making sure that our staff are not not forgotten in all of this work. Before we move on, I'm going to actually turn to Rick and ask if I am supposed to formally adjourn this meeting, or if I'm supposed to call in the discussion of whether or not we should have a closed section before I adjourn this meeting.
I believe you should go to the action items closed session within this meeting.
Okay, thank you. So, having finished our information items, our next item, item 5, is the agenda item to review a confidential legal memorandum related to bond grant and a closed session. And so the motion that I would like to ask for is a motion to authorize the Board of Waterworks Trustees to enter into closed session if deemed necessary pursuant to Iowa Code 622-622.10 and Iowa Code 21.51A, and to take any appropriate action upon returning to open session. I can walk through the summary of why I'm asking for this motion. I can do that before or after I get the motion.
Why don't you ask for a motion, because that specifies the grounds for.
Okay.
The meeting.
Okay. So,
Second.
thank you.
And I would read out the scope of the motion. And the motion to authorize the board. Or I can read it.
Just the board required action?
Yes. What
Okay.
you're asking for is a motion to authorize the Board of Waterworks Trustees to enter into closed session if deemed necessary pursuant to Iowa Code Section 622.10 and Iowa Code Section 21.51A, and to take any appropriate action upon returning to open session. And the purpose will be to review the legal advice embodied in a memo in front of the board at this time. So that's what the board is being asked to consider, going into closed session to consider and review.
So moved again.
Second. We have that motion, we have that second, unless anybody has any questions or concerns prior to taking a vote. We'll go ahead and ask all in favor to say aye.
Gotta be a roll call.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Ms. Kessinger. Ms. Munts.
Yes.
With that, we can go into closed session. Asking that was not on the board or privy to this matter to leave the room, shut the room. Post and off the public access. Announcing to the group here that we will be returning to open session on termination of the closed session.
We also have cookies in the back because it's Ted's last meeting and every time we get closed session of the meetings.
Closed session cookies.
Yeah,
Where's that?
so Andrew doesn't get hungry.
Yes, if we stick around, it's something that we've been talking about, there's something there. We're leaving. We're leaving. Sorry.